St. Vincent's Ralph Gonzalez is the longest-serving state leader in the region, clocking in at 23 plus continuous years. This man is over 78 years old and is a prime and harrowing example of political stagnation. This is Disgruntled Musings, a compilation of quick commentary on the latest socio-political news and updates from across the Caribbean region. I'm your host, Shem, podcast producer here at the CPSI. Let's get into it. SEDIMA, the Caribbean Disaster Emergency Management Agency, try saying that 5 times fast, to introduce new building standards. More likely a knee-jerk reaction to the potent mollywop delivered by Hurricane Beryl, no doubt. Details of this proposed new building standard are pretty scant. There isn't even any mention of the thing on SEDIMA's own website, which I'll admit looks like it's seen better days. Infrastructure in the Caribbean, especially housing, tends to be really poor, notoriously poor. I mean, where else are they building houses out of timber in a region prone to monstrous 100-mile-wide windstorms? It's like building a house out of gas-soaked wood at the base of an active volcano. But the thing is, we're no stranger to bricks, but here in Barbados, my own government is building new homes out of what appears to be plastic or some kind of prefab material. So in about 2 to 3 decades, the big one is going to hit and we'll be right back to square one. One can only assume that they'll wait till the existing housing stock is all flattened before they implement these changes. It's kind of a recurring theme in the region, which lends itself to a favorite saying of my director, where he goes, "There are no natural disasters, only social ones." Now don't come for my head just yet. This pointed indictment comes from an essay by Junot Diaz called Apocalypse, where he argues that the term natural disaster is a misnomer for socially engineered events that merely reveal the shortfalls of a system. That is, a series of bad decisions is made that undermine the integrity of an idea or design. A hurricane or natural phenomenon will come along and then reveal the effects of those bad decisions, often catastrophically. In the case of the Caribbean, cost-cutting measures have resulted in the proliferation of this poor infrastructure, acting as kindling for the next social disaster after a major storm. Barbados, St. Vincent, Grenada, most of the Lesser Antilles suffer from the same problem, whereby we've all chosen to build easily rather than build the proper way that is befitting of far-flung pebbles sitting in Hurricane Alley. Now I get it. Bricks are pricey. Masonry is pricey. Construction is pricey. But you know what else is pricey? Having to build it all over again in a decade, and the decade after that, and after that. You get it, right? Anyhow, moving on. Jamaica to send 24 security personnel to Haiti, and St. Kitts wants more global effort in Haiti. I think those personnel would be better utilized in Jamaica's own troubled streets. When your sinking neighbor lends you their only bucket to delay your sinking because you are sinking faster, it does not detract from the fact that you are both royally screwed. In this analogy, however, Jamaica is sending a bucket to the HMS Titanic, which is already at the bottom of the Atlantic. What exactly is this supposed to achieve? I already found the Kenyan police incursion, yes, that's what I'm calling it, quite laughable after it was announced and somehow executed earlier this year. It feels like a month can't go by without someone bringing up Haiti and everyone pretending that the collapsed husk of a nation still qualifies as a salvageable country of sorts. To rehash some of my previous grievances, Haiti is going to stay a pit of despair until drastic kinetic action is taken. That's me being nice in saying you're going to need a full-scale military intervention to quell the abject madness it's descended into. No one has the appetite for that. The USA is squeamish at the idea entirely. It doesn't want another Afghanistan on its doorstep with all the attrition and the embarrassment. The endorsement of the joint force, led by the Kenyans, was the biggest diplomatic "get someone else to do it" I've seen to date. St. Kitts' PM, Drew, was urging for more global action at a UN meeting, lauding his own administration's efforts in bringing the USA to the table on the matter. Way to pat your back on the biggest nothing ever. Uncle Sam is not setting foot in Port-au-Prince. CARICOM really is kind of on its own on this one. Or, we could just eject Haiti. Now, wait, before you get your kerosene-soaked pitchforks. No, get them. I have nothing to salvage that. We really should eject them as a matter of principle. I didn't say abandon, but right now there is no credible government in Haiti. The cabal that recently got caught trying to shake down a bank president doesn't count. It likely won't last a decade, But at present, the sorry state of affairs is somehow still a member of CARICOM. How? Again, I get the whole they are our brothers and sisters, but I reiterate that the plan is not to abandon Haiti, well, not yet anyway, but to eject it from CARICOM, as its instability actually undermines the integrity of the entire union. Haiti, as it stands, is a point of contention for the Dominican Republic, which will never sign on to freedom of movement as long as there is even an iota of a chance that this allows Haitians in. Bermuda and the USVI have also all but killed the notion as well, citing immigration complications, no doubt fueled by the instability of CARICOM's, well, one of CARICOM's largest members. Tackling Haiti will require much more than the impotent police exchange program we're seeing right now. And until the necessary bitter medicine is administered, it simply does not even meet the baseline criteria for membership in the Caribbean community. Let me spell it out for you. Haiti is not a country. Moving on yet again, St. Kitts reiterates support for Moroccan sovereignty over the Sahara territory, and the Bahamas inks a visa agreement with Rwanda. The headlines are weird today. This one kind of came out of nowhere, but in case anyone was wondering, the Federation, yes, St. Kitts and Nevis are a federation, for those of you who didn't know. But anyhow, the Federation has thrown its support behind Morocco in terms of its sovereignty over Western Sahara. You know, that chunk of West Africa, the West African coast, that's often just gray on maps because there's no data on it. Yeah, it's been trying to assert its independence from Morocco for some time now, and Bastille says, no way, Jose, that's all Morocco. Sticking to the African continent, the Bahamas has signed a visa waiver agreement with Rwanda. That Bahamian passport just got a little stronger. Now, if your charter flight somehow goes down outside Kigali, you can crawl to the nearest hospital without immigration fears, etc. That's the only reason I could see you ending up there, to be quite honest. The easiest path to any African state from the Caribbean is either through London or the Iberian Peninsula. That's Spain and Portugal for the geographically less inclined among us. Look at us learning today. Besides padding the visa-free list, I'm still unsure of the rationale behind this recent push for integration with Africa. The continent is so logistically disconnected from the Caribbean, I find it hard to believe that somehow this was the thing we sprung for over, say, Latin America. The trade aspect is non-existent, besides maybe funding and loans from organizations like a Frexim Bank. You won't be seeing Jollof rice on local menus anytime soon. Tourism is going to be a hard sell, as most destinations in the Caribbean incur hefty travel fees for a market that is not historically prime for luxury tourism. Most Africans arriving to the region in any significant numbers, since the slavery thing, are mostly on medical exchange programs aimed at making up shortfalls in regional hospital staff. Even Barbados' own dealings with Ghana and Liberia are kinda eyebrow-raising. Guys, we haven't even explored the full range of opportunities provided by our proximity to Latin America. If you can't even maintain flights to Rio de Janeiro, how are flights to Dakar gonna fare any better? And now for the quick takes. St. Kitts and Nevis will welcome its cruise season a month earlier with 10 vessels slated for October. Good job, guys. From all accounts, the Twin Island state is doing quite well for itself, and so far is the only country in the Lesser Antilles to record 1 million cruise arrivals in a single year back in 2018. I've been seeing a lot of articles as well on Guyana's meteoric rise as a petrostate. We're going to look back at this in amusement someday. I'm still of the mind that Guyana's meteoric rise, quote unquote, will go more in the direction of Nigeria rather than Saudi Arabia. Now that its wealth is now literally shooting out of the ocean floor, I predict that it will continue to neglect its own tangible development. After all, what is the paltry population of 750,000 people going to do? Flights between Georgetown and Texas are already in full swing, a likely indicator that most expertise and labor for the newly booming oil industry is gonna be imported rather than sourced from an upskilled local talent pool. I'd love to be proven wrong, but the government of the Cooperative Republic does not have a glittering track record. And finally in the news, Google is leasing some land in Bermuda for the new Nuvum cable. The internet is a series of tubes. If you're not old enough to get that reference, then yikes, I really am just old. Google is adding a new undersea link to the global network via Nuvum, which will connect the eastern US seaboard to Portugal via Bermuda. Google has leased a coastal plot for the necessary anchor point in Bermuda to the tune of 4.8 million USD. Nuvum adds additional capacity and redundancy for web resources on opposite ends of the pond. It's not going to make this episode load any faster, but it could prove to be an interesting catalyst for greater transatlantic tech development in Bermuda. Today's long talk is titled The Eternal Curfew. Bow your heads, ladies and gentlemen. We are gathered here today to celebrate the life of a venerable friend and once vibrant aspect of our society. Here, we mourn the loss of nightlife in Barbados. It was a quaint thing. Long nights in the ghetto, shopping at supermarkets past 9, and chilling at gas stations till the wee hours of the morning. May it rest in peace. Well, it's dead, y'all. What little nightlife the country had has faded to a pre-pandemic memory that's becoming increasingly awkward to justify on an island that is a premium tourism destination. Gone are the days when one particular supermarket, cough cough, Emerald City, would boast of a closing time of exactly 1 minute past 10, and they actually honored it. Caribbean islands are understandably mostly sleepy and quaint, oversized towns masquerading as entire countries. Some have outgrown this mold thanks to fortunes from oil, gas, and minerals like Trinidad and Tobago. Coupled with its population of over 1.3 million, the Twin Island Republic is able to support an economy that continues to function way beyond sunset. But for others like Barbados and St. Vincent, the village spirit is here to stay. Prior to the global pandemic, there was a significantly higher amount of night activity in Barbados' capital, Bridgetown. Today, stores shutter as early as 6 p.m., and by 9, the city is reduced to a ghost town most days. Unlike many countries which have seen a rebound to norm, Barbados' opening hours have remained stuck in pandemic mode. It wasn't just the lockdowns that sealed the fate of our night economy, but a belligerent government which seemed keen to make a point that no one actually challenged, much to the detriment of every bar, corner store, and club. For reasons even unknown to myself, the government maintained a public curfew well into 2021, first at 7 p.m. and then slowly easing up to 11. Sometimes a spike in cases would prompt unnecessary snaps back to 8 or 10, but no matter the hour, it carried a disproportionate burden for any establishment that depended on post-work after-hour business. Supermarkets, which are some of the largest logistical operations on the island, need to close at hours that allow for cleaning, stocking, and safe transport for their employees, and they needed to do that all before the government-mandated crackdown. Anyone who didn't have one of those essential worker passes was at risk of jail time or even a fine if caught by police. The ever-present threat was stress-inducing for anyone who wasn't a government or tourism worker, and if that person needed to do anything, they'd need to move at supersonic speeds to conduct business before the island shut down every day. Keep in mind, many larger economies around the globe had already bucked the curfew trend. The rationale that fewer hours reduced exposure possibility was somewhat understood, but also thrown out the window when the government lifted it entirely for the country's celebration of becoming a republic. Perhaps the hope was that COVID was also celebrating and would be too busy to infect anyone. The curfew mechanic was overused and outright abused for an extended period of time, which is not just conditioned customers, but the very businesses themselves. These businesses, the ones that survived, have no intention to reopen at regular hours anymore. Their customers are now programmed to be in and out by 8, and supermarkets continue to see pandemic rush revenue due to the urgency of shopping in that time window. Now they all close 1 to 2 hours earlier. They don't need to pay staff and security for those hours either. In essence, the country is now in a completely self-imposed curfew that is unmistakably taking a toll on the night economy. Chefette, the largest fast food chain on the island, has reduced its opening hours down as well. And given the anchor store status that it possesses on major streets in the city, this deals yet another blow to any revitalization efforts for Bridgetown. Listeners, this would have been easily preventable if Barbados were actually paying attention to the global trends instead of pretending it was entirely in uncharted waters. I never forgot the praise that the head of the WHO piled on the country for its COVID response. I never understood it either. Most of Barbados' response was, to me, very poorly thought out, purely reactionary, and for the most rather ineffective in the end, considering the virus was literally ferried right back to our shores via tourism. The island basically contorted itself well over 2 years to maintain protocols that we were told were in place to preserve the integrity of our fragile healthcare system. Well, we're out of the pandemic, and that system seems even more broken than during the damn thing. The curfews were part of emergency powers that were held onto government far longer than they should have been, and in the end were misused. Now look at us. I can't get a good pizza slice past 9. If you say Shafet, I'll slap you. Someone should be mad at that. I am, and more people should be. This has been Disgruntled Musings, a proudly produced CPSI podcast. If you've enjoyed this episode, check out our other podcasts and published works at cpsi.media.